Hello and welcome to Hypothetically Speaking, the show where we talk about anything unexplained, unsolved, and unnatural. I'm Bree.
I'm Morgan.
And I'm Allison. Okay, so I am bringing the topic today. And I heard about this case from like another like true crime show that I was watching. And this is a solved case, but it is so incredibly um like mind-boggling and like insane the destruction that this one person caused, and also this one person's behavior that we do have to talk about it. This is the case of one arsonist who went by three different names, um, from the like 80s to like 90s in the LA area. And it is their three names is the Pillow Pyro, the Frito Bandito, and the Coin Tosser.
I
What
knew
an odd collection of names.
I knew
Yes.
about Frito Bandito, but I did not know about the other ones.
The
Well, it's all
first
one
one,
person.
I find the first one particularly funny, given that a dorm building that I was in at one point did have a fire alarm that dumped the whole building because someone accidentally set their pillow on fire with a candle. Um, and I think that that is how I will refer to them in my mind from this day forward.
Pillow Pyro.
Yeah. Um, Also, just a quick trigger warning for people. If you have fire-related trauma, I don't recommend this one. If you have uh if like deaths caused by fire bothers you, I wouldn't listen to this. And then the deaths of children, if that's gonna bother you, very brief mentions of it. And not going into any real like graphic details, but just putting that out there. Uh we have happier and funnier things that we've talked about. So I might
Yeah,
refer you to those.
you could
Might I
watch. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, might I recommend some Yule Lads if
I
you
was
want
also
something light and unoffensive?
Yule
Yes.
Lads is great. Dancing Plague's pretty interesting, and I'd say the more lighthearted end of like weird phenomena.
It happened a really long time ago too.
Yeah. Or
This
like
one, yeah,
there was
not so long.
another one. I think the jellyfish one was a pretty good time too.
Yeah, I think any of the like natural, like I think we've got sea monsters, like we did the
Hmm.
Kraken and
Weird
sea
historical
serpent.
machines isn't gonna have much for triggering
Yeah.
info.
Hmm. I
Um,
don't know for sure for if I'm gonna get it up tonight. I'm gonna try, but it is currently also just for the vibe of the show, Friday the 13th. So I don't know. The energy is spooky on this
yeah.
day.
All right. So we will start in South Pasadena, California in 1984. A fire breaks out at an Ollie's Home Center hardware store. And this building is about the size of a football field, and it erupted in flames within minutes. Hardware stores have highly flammable material. And then on top of that, the way the building was designed, this was the 80s. So there were some pretty questionable regulations. Um, Sprinkler system was only in half of the building, which was okay because there were fire doors that would go to that side of the building. Um, Unfortunately, it was, uh, you can see how that might be just an issue if something might happen to the fire doors. Um,
It's
or
a
if
bit of
people can't
a
find them in a very smoky and confusing environment, in a football field sized building, not a football
Yeah.
sized building.
And like
Um,
most hardware stores have a less obvious layout, like because of the equipment that they
Yes.
have and the supplies. Like it's not like a grocery store where things are
Hmm.
pretty uniform and methodical and like one could walk into a grocery
Yeah.
store they've never been in and have a pretty good idea of where something will be.
Yeah.
A
I would
hardware
also
store is really
say
hard to do that in.
I would
Yeah.
also say the other thing about a hardware store is that unless it's Vermilion, South Dakota, where Mr. Smith's is, you probably aren't going there every week like you do a
Yeah.
grocery store. And a
Yeah.
lot of people go to like the same, even if they're living in an area with like a lot of different options, you probably go to the same one like pretty often. Whereas a hardware store, you're not going to as often. You're just much more likely to not know it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it during like operational hours or was
It
this
was
in
during
the evening?
operational hours.
Okay.
But it was like later in the day, but it was operational hours still. Um, it wasn't particularly busy. One worker um was talking about this event and remembered that it was like the World Series that night, so he was like, "Oh, that's why it's not very busy tonight." When he was thinking back to that day. Um, but unfortunately, the fire exits. So there were like fire exits on the outside of the building, and they were like these big metal doors that slid down, and those closed. So they closed because the like links in between these like melted, and then they were designed to do that, right? They are
Mhm.
designed to close when there's a fire because it would
Yeah.
contain the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also just reiterating it's in Southern California, so there's like an incredibly fire prone area that has
Yeah.
always been pretty fire
Like
prone.
wildfires are just definitely a thing.
And also just like terribly
Yeah.
devastating,
Yeah.
if not contained. So that is probably part of the reason why that is why the doors are designed that way as well. But the doors closed before people, not everybody could get out. Um, and the people on the in the eggs like outside of the building couldn't figure out how to open those doors back up to um, help the people who are trapped inside escape. There were four people who were trapped inside the building who died. Um, One of them was Matthew Troidel, a 2-year-old boy. Ada Deal, his 50-year-old grandmother. A woman named Carolyn Kraus, who was 26, a mother of two, and she was a worker there. And then uh, Jimmy Satina, a 17-year-old employee. Those four perished in the fire. Uh, Evidence suggested that the two workers were actually would have been able to escape because they knew the layout, but they were trying to make sure everybody else were getting out when they got trapped. Um, so firefighters arrived on the scene and were not able to contain the fire because the material inside the building was so flammable. Like they weren't really able to do anything to contain the fire. It lasted into like the morning. Um, and by the end of it, there was like nothing left of the building essentially. It was almost all destroyed. Um, when uh so initially it was the firefighters who called in arson investigations who uh then needed to so basically because there was like an arson investigation, the police came in too, and the police had authority. The police that investigated this crime or this scene determined that it was not arson, despite arson investigators speculating that it was. The police determined that the fires were started because of faulty wiring in the attic of the building. At this same time, when the fire started at Oli's hardware store, There were two other fires set in separate grocery stores, in potato chip aisles, hence the name, the Frito Bandito Arsonist.
Hmm.
Initially, um, initially they weren't thought of as connected. Just for reference, LA had a problem with arsonists at this time. Like rising since the 70s, they like went up like 400% or something like that. Um,
So they really just said,
they were
if
just
I had
like,
a nickel for every time this happened, I'd have two nickels at the same time. But weird that it happened twice, I guess.
well, I
Yeah,
think they suspected that the police or the potato chip fires
Okay.
were related because
but
it
not
was
Okay.
like
yeah,
similar,
not the
Okay.
but they
hardware
didn't
But
store.
not
find
the hardware.
any,
Okay.
yeah, they didn't find
That's
any
fair.
evidence in the
I was like, man, to
hardware
brush off
store.
two potato chip aisle fires really
Yes.
close together is wild to me.
Yeah. The other
Also,
thing,
I'm I guess I get it, but also if you're getting so many arson like reports, arson's on the rise, and arson experts are saying that it could be, like they have a good feeling it could be. I don't know why you wouldn't
yeah,
Look into it
look
more.
into it a little further. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, man,
one
there's a
would
lot of
think.
arson, but this one couldn't possibly be, is a
Yeah.
Yeah.
fascinating
That's kind of
I
where
way
I'm
to
mean,
go
sitting.
after it. Yeah.
they had somewhat reasonable, right, like wiring issues that could happen. One thing is, so just to give you a little bit of helpful terms here is um, point of origin is the place where the fire started. Um, and then incendiary device is a device that, like a delayed incendiary device specifically, is a device that's meant to like start a fire after a certain amount of time. So they could not find an incendiary device in the building that was almost completely destroyed. And also, um, they couldn't exactly locate the point of origin for this particular fire. Um,
See, I
but the,
struggle with that. If you
yeah,
can't find the point of origin, then who are you to say it was caused by wiring? Like, that
Hmm.
seems like a blanket, like,
yeah.
yes, I'm sure wiring starts fires quite frequently. Like, I've seen electrical stuff start on fire multiple times. So, like, I get that that's going to be a common thing,
Yeah.
but like,
Also, when I was in sixth grade, I had my phone charging like on my pillow, like I had
yeah.
fallen asleep on it. And like it was like a really cheap charger from Amazon or something like that. And I woke up and had burnt hair. So I think what happened was it sparked in the middle of the night and I like rolled over onto it. My pillow had a hole burned into it and I had lost some pieces of hair. I was
At
fine.
least it went out and
Allison was
didn't injure you
born to
further.
put fires out, is what we're seeing.
So what I'm
Um,
I
hearing is stop, drop, and roll was relevant for you.
I didn't know I
yeah,
was doing it, but
it was so
apparently I
ingrained.
was.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
Yeah.
had a candle incident where one of the it was one of the boys, one of the cats jumped right where the candle was going and just stood there and was like, little warm. Well, it's right under their belly. And he was fine. I checked him. He had like a tiny bit of singed fur, and I was able to like brush it off of where it was. And like I checked all over like where he was above the fire. He didn't have any like overly pink skin or like tender spots or anything like that. But I just can't get over how he just stood there and sniffed like, what's that weird smell? It's like, that's your fur singeing.
Wait, which one was it?
Lucky.
Of
Oh,
course
he's
it's Lucky. Lucky's so dumb.
dumb. Oh.
I I worked at an ice
He's
cream
fine.
shop for a really long time, and with the ice cream shop we would like make our own waffle cones. And so we had these waffle irons, but like you'd run two of them at a time, and we made so many cones. I mean, it was multiple hundreds every day. And so you're opening and closing them all the time. And I will say I have had two of them start on fire while I was making waffle cones. And like it's just in the back of the machine, so it's not like right next to me, and like it's not a huge machine, so like it was a kind of small fire, but it just like people would be like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "I'm standing right next to it. It's not that bad. Just get me something to like I need some towels or I just need to suffocate it
To
because it's
dampen it.
electrical.
Yeah.
Please don't get me water."
Yeah, not water.
But
We haven't had too
Mhm.
many bad fire experiences. I have had like a
Yeah.
couple,
Yeah.
but
No, I haven't
nothing
had anything.
terrible.
The arguably most risky one happened when I was asleep, and
yeah.
everything was fine, obviously. So
Yeah,
we're good here.
we're
But
good.
back to incendiary devices. I think both of the grocery stores, they actually were able to find the incendiary device, which is another reason why they thought it was connected because it was the same one. And it was a cigarette rubber banded to three matches. And so the cigarette would burn down, lighting the matches on fire. Potato
Hmm.
chips, very greasy and oily, so they would catch fire.
That is not what I immediately jumped to in my head when you said incendiary device.
Yeah, it
But
sounds a little bit more
yeah,
complex than
More
yeah,
what
sophisticated.
yeah,
But at the
this
end of the
was.
day, all it has to do
Incredibly
yeah,
is
effective,
yeah,
evidently.
sustain a fire in an environment in which fires
yeah,
will have plenty of fuel.
yeah.
So,
Mhm. So one of the arson investigators who was on the scene, was on the scene of the um, hardware factory, was one he was sure it was arson. Um, and he actually initially put out the theory that the other two grocery stores were meant as like distractions from the hardware store fire. This was John Orr. Orr was a very like well-known arson investigator. Um, he rose through the ranks of the Glendale Fire Department really quickly. He also had an um, what the several articles called an uncanny ability to locate incendiary devices amid like charred rubble, um, and stuff like that. And he bragged about catching more than 40 serial arsonists during his time in the fire department, and had written sort of like articles for the American Fire Journal on like the psychology and methods of arsonists. So he was very well understood arsonist, and he was one that was sure that it was
Yeah.
arson.
So you're in big arson time, and your primary arson catching guy says, "Seems like arson," and you go, "Nah."
you go,
Yep.
meh,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah.
What a like Hercule-esque figure, by the way.
Yeah,
Like uncanny detective ability, but
I yeah.
specifically with arsonists, which I think is how most really great detectives are, is that they have a specific profile they're really good at,
Yeah.
or a specific, I guess, like crime, like arson or vice or
yeah.
something like that.
hmm Um, so then so this was in no, he so this wasn't in Glendale, this was in Pasadena, but he had um like just been in the area and happened to respond. But then there were a string of other um, fires throughout the LA County area in other hardware stores. A second one in another Ollie's hardware store, even. These weren't as bad, and they did um, find. I'm not sure if they found incendiary devices at both of these, but I think they did because I think that's how they connected them. Um,
So you'd probably look at like there is the way that fireworks like grows and spreads gives evidence, which is how like people are able to determine causes.
mhm.
So maybe it could have been like similar cause
I I
Yeah, yeah.
also
I think there's something to be said about
yeah,
like like if you determine it started somewhere where it's like, oh, there's like very flammable material, but there's no like we're not sure how else it started, I think there's
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
reasonable chances because you can generally, I don't know about, I shouldn't say generally, but they can pinpoint the point of origin in a lot of cases, at least.
Yeah.
Also, where John Orr worked, I think he was a captain at this time. Where he worked in Glendale, there was also an uptick in arson, 78% in this area. Like very recently, not just like since the 70s,
Yeah.
but like within the last like year or something like that. Um, so at first, these these have been connected after the fact. Um, During investigations, they weren't connected at all, actually, because they happened in different localities. And so, because they would happen in different cities, these cities weren't necessarily talking to them, the cities weren't talking to the county. And so, and on top of that, like just other
Yeah.
arsonists
Geography,
operating at the
yeah.
time, I guess,
Geography has
were,
been a big thing for crime for quite a while. Like you see it all
yeah,
the time in like really old like serial killer cases where they'd like travel or anything like that. It would take them forever to link stuff
yeah,
together.
Hmm.
yeah.
And so
Well,
I'm not surprised.
that's a
Different
big reason
precincts and things.
Yeah.
why there's like truck stops are very dangerous.
Yeah.
For like because there have been people who have been serial killers, but they're just truck drivers and are moving the whole time. So it's very hard to connect things when state governments, like across state lines, they're really not talking to each other a lot of times. And I think that was similar to what this was. Like it was really just happenstance with how they ended up getting connected in the end. But um, fires continued to be set more often over the next years, like coming years. The Another thing that they would notice is that the arsonist would appear and then light a couple of fires and then stop for a month at a time and then come back with like a slightly different incendiary device. And this is when we get a second name of his, which is the coin tosser, because he attached coins to the incendiary device so they would have like more weight. Um, and like wouldn't I think he did it so he could like toss it easier and stuff like that and
Hmm.
have it land where he wanted to.
Yeah. It is hard to
Um
throw something that's super light and get any sort
yeah,
of accuracy on where it's gonna land.
yeah. Um and then there was another change that happened at some point, which is that he actually would like wrap it in just yellow lined like notebook paper to like conceal it. Um so over these next couple of years is when they actually start getting reports of an arsonist of the arsonist description, which is a really pathetic report. Brown hair, average build, average height.
Ah, yes.
This is the
That's
most average looking man,
That has
and
so
ever been
but
descriptive.
described.
it keeps cropping up of like, oh, average build, average height, brown hair, acting weird before the fire breaks out, acting
So
weird before the fire breaks out, and then leaving. Um,
I guess I could see if someone's pretty unassuming, you
Yeah.
wouldn't know any specific details about them.
Yeah. And I will say, like, if someone asked me to describe what someone looks like just from a verbal standpoint without looking at them, it would be hard even for people that you know relatively well if you weren't looking right at them in that moment. So, like, to do
yeah,
that for someone you saw for a few minutes before you were stressed and panicked and trying to get away from a fire is just, it's not going to happen for most people if they don't
yeah.
have, like, the training that, like, a police officer or someone like that would to, like, pay attention to the people around them, I would think.
Yeah, also this incendiary device, it was a roughly like a 10-minute timer.
Yeah.
Um, based off of like how quickly the cigarette would burn down to the matches. So it also like kind of like I mean 10 minutes isn't a
It's
long
far
time.
enough removed though that most people aren't going to know. Like, it's hard to know who you'd specifically connect.
Yeah.
Hmm.
One thing that I do take solace in is that this would be much more difficult to set fire to a building today because of like you notice cigarette smoke
Oh
so
yeah,
much
that's
quicker.
something
Yeah.
I
I feel
thought of
like
too.
everybody else, like a lot of these buildings probably allowed for smoking inside, but also they probably um everybody else probably like not everybody, but like a lot of people smoked too, and so they probably just also smelled like smoke a lot of times. It's not quite as the much the noticeable and pungent scent that it is today.
Yeah, I
I,
was thinking about that it
yeah.
would be more, even if it wasn't necessarily super common for like the hardware store, it wouldn't be the weirdest thing for someone for to smell cigarette smoke.
Hmm.
And I think now too, like there's so much more going on with technology stuff that like if there was an extensive fire, you never know, maybe you would lose camera data or something, but there are cameras everywhere. Like it'd be so
Yeah.
much harder to get away with something like this when they can like see everyone that's entering and leaving the building. If they're tied to multiple locations and they're going to look for people that are the same that are entering those places, like who's going to two
Yeah.
of the same type of grocery store on the same day, like it would be a lot easier to narrow that kind of stuff down.
Also, even with places that did have cameras, the cameras were just so bad at
Yeah.
getting like
You,
close features.
looking at the camera, you'd go, that's a medium average looking guy with brown hair, and that's about all the camera would tell you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna jump forward to 1987. Fresno, California, there is an arson investigator conference. During this conference, there are two craft stores that have arson fires in them. These are in, I think they're both in Bakersfield, California, which is like in between Fresno and LA. Um, and we're set along Highway 99, but it's like closer to Fresno because that was the weird thing, right? Is like there's a
Hmm.
arson investigator conference.
It's pretty
Um,
direct.
It's a bold
And
move.
yeah.
yep,
So this arsonist maybe didn't know or potentially did it on purpose.
which
Um,
would be wild.
With how arsonists operate, I wouldn't be shocked if it was on purpose because
yeah.
usually they are very like most cases you see of them, they like want to stay and watch the fire. They want to see people freak out about it. They want people to know that they set multiple. Like they don't want people to just be like,
Yeah.
oh, this random one-off thing. Like they would prefer that people figure it out. And so if you pick that location, they will figure it out.
Hmm. But there weren't just fires set in Bakersfield. There were actually fires set along Highway 99, which goes, from LA to the Fresno area. Um, so in one of the craft stores, it was actually quickly put out by an employee, and another arson investigator. Remember, they're not talking to each other at this point at all. Marvin Casey found this incendiary device. It was a cigarette burning down to three matches. Um, this one had a little sheet of paper next to it. It was also in a bin of fake flowers, I want to say.
Okay.
So that was the flammable material. But the luckily the employee caught it and like it was put out very quickly. Nobody was hurt or anything like that. Um, this one had a little sheet of paper next to it that didn't get burnt though. And this paper had a single fingerprint
Ah,
Mm.
believed to belong to the arsonist. Now, Marvin's a pretty smart guy, and he thought it odd that there was a series of arson fires were set in a town hosting an arson investigator conference.
yeah.
Um,
Could you
but
imagine just
he,
like the movie version of this waltzing in with the paper, like I got a case for you guys.
But Marvin had a hunch. He thought that that the arsonist was an arson investigator.
Oh,
That I could see where that would potentially be a thing. Like a lot of people that commit these kinds of crimes kind of want to insert themselves kind of close to it because they
It's
want to
kind of
see the
like
after effect of what they did.
it's kind of
yeah.
like Dexter in a way.
Yeah.
Like there's a Dexter element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, Marvin initially was like, well, okay, so first he got a list of conference attendees, and then he narrowed down the list based on where people lived, and like where they were coming from. And he narrowed it down to 55 people. And then he asked the ATF to pull fingerprints for all of these people. But since there wasn't really any like real evidence that it was an arson investigator, they basically left him off um, because there wasn't really any real evidence, and it kind of sounds like a ridiculous idea. Um, so he also was just sort of like got like pretty heavy criticism for even the suggestion. Um,
I bet they're gonna
but
feel so silly if this is an arson investigator.
mhm,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
boy, do they. So flipping forward 2 more years, it is 1989, and another California town, Pacific Grove, has another set of um has another like series of fires that are believed to be arson.
Is an arson investigator recently moved?
No, but there is another arson investigator conference in Pacific Grove. And so
Yeah.
I guess they
Marvin,
gotta have them semi-annually.
And they said it'll be easier if I do it when I'm on vacation when they're all here instead of always at my home so that they'll know it's me for sure.
yeah, and Marvin realized that it was the same incendiary devices. Um, but now he cross-referenced the names, and then, figured out where those guys lived and where they would be driving. Now he only had 10 names on the list.
Are these the 10 that fit his requirements that were also on the previous list of 50 people, I presume?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that would have been
Yeah.
driving through these
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he asked the ATF to run these 10 prints, and they did, but they didn't find any matches. The ATF abandoned this theory completely. So, um, after yet more fires, like they don't stop, they're still happening. But these are getting more and more brazen, resulting in millions of dollars in damages to retail stores. And they're starting to be at very high risk times, high risk to loss of life because of they're during like busy traffic hours, during busy business traffic hours. Um, so the ATF puts together a task force, which is kind of more in response to like the, I think their like name was the Pillow Pyro Task Force is what they went with. Um,
Be
so
so for real. No wonder why they had
not the
terrible decision
official,
making.
not the official name, but that was their like nickname for it.
I would
Um,
I would be coming up with a different name for us
I would
personally.
I would promptly pick something different.
they don't hire these guys for the naming.
No,
So,
no, they don't.
Clearly
all
not.
right. So, during this task force, there was another sort of not like quite a conference, but there was another meeting of like smaller. So they had like another task force, the fire departments did, uh, just among like smaller towns and localities. And their name was Fire Investigators Regional Strike Team, which is like first is the acronym. So
It's not the
that's
worst.
that's not the worst, but it's just kind of cheesy.
It sounds like it should be the name of a group in like a children's show. Like it's kind of giving like
Yeah,
Power Rangers.
a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah.
It just made me, for some
So
reason, it made me think of the spearfish sea kittens thing.
Oh, yeah. For any who don't know, I'm from a town called Spearfish, and our school mascot was the Spartan. And some people from PETA got confused and thought that we lived in a town called Spartan for a reason I don't understand, with our school mascot being Spearfish, and they thought that that was really inhumane. So they tried to get us to swap it to the Sea Kittens, um, which resulted in some really funny like town jokes and like t-shirts and things. But alas, they were just deeply confused,
Which,
and we did not plan to change our town name to the Sea Kittens.
which to be, and even to, not to get too off topic, but I was telling Braden about this recently,
Yeah,
and he was like, not that it like, it doesn't have any connection to the town at all, but at least like sea cat sounds cool and is a
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like,
So
why
yeah,
specifically sea kittens? Why is that? I mean,
the world may never know.
not that I, as someone who is was very involved in the animal rights like discussion for many years, PETA has never made a single like normal decision ever.
They quite simply wish to be the local cryptid in your area by making the oddest choice at every turn.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Anywho, um, support different
yeah.
animal rights organizations.
There are
Um,
better ones out there, I will
There are much
say.
better ones. Or just your local humane society is a great way to donate to animal welfare.
yeah. Um, Speaking of animal welfare, just kidding. I don't have a
Oh
link for
no.
that.
That would have
Um,
been very
yeah.
upsetting.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the fires. And I'm like, no.
No, there, I actually don't think that it's possible pets were hurt in
But
this, but
but it's not
it
like at many
there
locations that
weren't.
pets would be, it sounds like.
Yeah.
No, it was mostly stores, although not exclusively. There probably were animals harmed because this person ended up setting some like brush fires too.
Yeah.
Um, but so
Like, to start wildfires is
really bad.
like on purpose is just a different level of horrible. Like to start buildings on
Hmm.
fire with property damage and risk to human life is bad, but like to start an actual wildfire is that's a lot.
Especially because
Yeah.
like arson is bad in the obvious reasons. But wildfires are so deeply unpredictable and can become so much bigger of a problem than
Yeah,
like you can really even comprehend.
yeah. Like even if they struggle to put out a fire in a building, they can usually at least seal the building and kind of keep it contained and wait for it to burn itself out. With wildfires, if it happens to be windy or particularly dry, or like you just don't really know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Unless if you're an arson investigator and then maybe you set them on purpose in certain conditions. But you know, if you're an arson investigator and you do that, that's a special brand of awful.
Yeah. Like there's controlled burns in
Yeah,
forests, in
yeah.
fields, like but that is an entirely different beast
You've like
than
soaked all the grass around the area with water probably, and you've
Yeah.
picked the perfect conditions on the day that you do it, and it's
yeah.
cleared out
It's very
around it. Like
controlled.
there's so many safety things with that that
Yeah.
Hmm.
um,
Um, yeah, so anyways, these towns are finally communicating to some degree. And then they're starting to realize that he's operating in multiple places. And so they passed around this person's MO, right? the incendiary devices, where he's typically doing it, his whatever description they have, which is not very good, but it is what
Yeah.
they have. And one person, Scott Baker, who is a name we haven't heard before, but he knows Marvin Casey. Um, and he didn't want to say anything during the meeting initially, but went and talked to the I think it was the ATF person. Honestly, there's a lot of different things going on in here, and it's kind of hard to keep track of. Um, but Scott Baker, so the ATF was the person who passed around this MO, and then Scott Baker was like, "Oh, wait, hold on. Boy, do I have some more information to you." The ATF at this point, they don't really have like a ton of information still. So Scott Baker, though, he's part of the California State Fire Marshal's office. And then he worked with Marvin and had known about Marvin's suspicions and everything. And then basically organized a meeting between the ATF and Marvin um, again, and or with the ATF task force specifically. So Marvin convinced this task force to, and it's a small task force. There's only like three people plus their supervisor on it. Um, Ended up rerunning the prints for the 10 suspects that Marvin had put together. It was only a year or two later, but the technology was a little better, a little bit more accurate, and this time they did get a match.
You would feel so vindicated and so mad that they didn't figure this out earlier.
Yeah. There was so much development in like
Oh,
Like
identification
forensics.
technology. Yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
forensics in that time. So I could totally see where it just couldn't quite do it yet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it would definitely be frustrating that you could have figured this out sooner.
So the match was a person who had um, applied for the LA police force and or so, yeah, Los Angeles Police Department, who was found unsuitable because they didn't pass the psych test, and then had applied to the LA Fire Department that found him physically unfit, but then ended up at the Glendale Fire Department.
Mm.
Hmm.
They had really low applications because they were one of the worst paying fire department jobs, so he got it easier than the other ones. Um, he quickly rose through the ranks and had become an arson investigator. The match was none other than John Leonard Orr, the investigator from the
Yeah.
Ole's
I bet he
hardware
was
department.
fantastic at finding out what was arson. Yeah.
I bet he
I'm
was
sure I'm
really,
sure he did
really
have a
good at
hunch.
it.
I started being afraid that this would be the outcome about halfway through you explaining this case, and I'm so sad that I'm right.
Yeah.
I try
John
not,
What an
or
inside job.
like, I've reached the point with Paxton where when we watch shows, he gets mad at me when I make predictions. He'll be like, quit spoiling the show. And I'm like, I haven't seen it. And he's like, yeah, but you're still right so often that you basically just spoil it anyway.
Derek and I have
Um,
that conversation.
and so I didn't want to jump, but I am sad that I was correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Orr is not only a serial arsonist and an arson investigator, he is also an author. In 1991, the book that he was trying to get published was named Point of Origin, was a 104,000 word manuscript, and was inspired by a fiction writing course at the Glendale Community College.
So you mean to say that within the first year he was fired or hired, the amount of fires increased by like 77%, huh?
No, it wasn't the first year, but
Okay.
but over
Okay.
the course of his
Yeah.
career. Also, for
Just a little
those,
bit about the book. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say for those that are not super like word count for books, 100,000 words is a lot of words. That's a that's a decent sized. I wouldn't say it's like uncommon. Like I sure there's are books out there that have that many words, and it depends on like font size and like margins and stuff. But that's a pretty big book. That's like probably
Hmm.
like at least a 500 page book, if I had to
Yeah.
guess.
Um, yes. So just to give you a little bit of information on the book because it's fucked up. The hero of his manuscript is a man named Phil, who is a tenacious gun-packing arson investigator in LA. And the villain is Aaron, who is a socially stunted pyromaniac that finds sexual arousal in the blazes he sets. Um, and who uses his specialized knowledge as a veteran firefighter to escape detection.
Be so for real.
This is like,
He's
and
writing fanfic about himself twice at the same time. That is
it's like
horrendous.
it's like a
Mhm.
Nesion. That, like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, that's
Oh,
so.
it gets worse.
Oh,
So,
No.
Aaron Stiles is the arsonist, and his signature device is a lit cigarette that burns down to an ignitable bead of glue. Uh, and so it's very similar incendiary device that he uses. And in chapter 6 of the book, Aaron Stiles drops a device onto a foam cushion of a South Pasadena hardware store called Cal's, where four people fail to find their way out and die in terror.
Like, it's so twisted to set fires and then respond to the fire that you set and then investigate the fire that you set and then take that and write a story about that one time that you set a fire and then also investigated that fire. That is
this is
so messed up.
this is like unreal levels of villainy. I legitimately what it makes me think of is it makes me think of Chief Irons in Resident Evil, where he
Mm,
has this like hunting diary where he's like, I killed a tiger, I spilled its guts, blah blah blah.
yeah,
And then the last page is very clearly talking about him hunting and killing a person.
Yeah.
Like it's giving that,
Yeah.
yeah.
which is
I
really, really
just,
bad.
yeah, I want to know what he would be diagnosed with from the DSM-5 because I feel like there's got to be
Something.
something there. Like
The so
yeah,
the failed psych tests basically I actually didn't write it down, but it's just like all sorts of things.
flags, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, just lots of flags about having like problems with authority, but also
Uh,
wanting authority
uh,
and like um yeah, they I think they describe him as like schizoid personality traits is how
Okay.
they described it, which I don't think they're meaning schizophrenic, but just that
yeah,
like duality of
yeah.
Yeah. And like
uncertainty.
there
Oh,
is
and also that
also
he's sexually frustrated.
I'm
That
glad that they noticed.
tracks.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they were able to tell that somehow.
Yeah.
Um,
I wonder
Oh,
why.
also sorry, I'm just remembering some of the things. The Research test, what's that?
yeah.
The ink blot thing?
The ink blots, yeah.
Yep.
indicated that he was like too passive. Just
Yeah.
very
Mhm.
interesting, troubled personality. I'm just gonna read you a quick quote because I do think it describes um the character and himself very well. Aaron wanted the cow's fire to be ruled arson. He loved the inadvertent attention he derived from the newspaper coverage and hated it when he wasn't properly recognized. The deaths were blotted out of his mind. It wasn't his fault, just stupid people acting as stupid people do.
Is that from his book?
That's from his book, yeah.
Okay. So and like I don't have any quality of diagnosis of anything, and
Oh
obviously the
no.
way that they had probably qualified, I don't not even
Yeah.
qualified for him for anything,
Yeah.
but just like analyzed him in the past is with somewhat dated information from the 80s and 90s where we were
Yeah.
still
Our
get,
mental health was real bad at that time. We were
yeah.
not
It
great
was,
at
yeah.
diagnosis for sure.
But
That is true.
I will never stop finding it fascinating how people, especially it's like it's just a human trait, I think. But obviously it expresses very scarily in people who do forms of violent crime, but how people just can't help but tell on themselves.
Yeah.
Like it's something in
Yes.
the social animal part
You
of
want
our
people to
brain, I feel like.
recognize, yeah. They want someone to understand this thing that they did and aren't they so smart, kind of?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it's like the satisfaction comes at a certain point from people like knowing or like getting, yeah, that like validation of recognition, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's so, yeah, so
Yeah.
weird. Especially like, yeah, the kind of like not even thinking about the deaths, kind of almost assuaging himself of any guilt or wrongdoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
In the pages of this book, he was trying to not even like his own personal little fucked up manuscript, but like he's trying to actively get this published.
Yeah.
yeah, yes. He
And when
is
you
sending
said
it to publishers with letters about it that are used in the court
and
hearings.
at first when you said manuscript, I jumped to this being like more of like a textbook of like for other
Me too.
firefighters and like fire
Yeah.
Mm,
investigators was like my initial thought when you first talked about
no.
this. And then realizing that this is like an actual novel is ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna look for
Um,
something real
Yeah.
fast, but
Also, just to give, so I didn't go, I'm not going super in depth into the novel, but
Yeah.
the like characterization of both the uh like investigator who's like hates just very interesting. The investigator like hates cops and feels like shunned by them. Um, and
Naturally.
just as like yeah, and then the firefighter who's so Aaron, the like villain in it, he's the misfit in his department. Like there's just so much like there's just so much like
There's clearly a lot of real life venting going on there.
yes, yeah. And just to give a little bit more background on John, he served, so he grew up in Highland Park, served in the Air Force for 2 years after he turned 18. And then like that was after that he was rejected from the LA Police Department, rejected from the LA Fire Department. He had worked a series of odd jobs, one of those being a security guard at a some at retail stores, oddly enough, in which he was like basically supposed to stop people from like shoplifting. Um, and then he got like he would get like very frustrated when people didn't like acknowledge him or like respond to the security guard telling them not to shoplift. Um, and at one point, he had stopped a burglary and got put in a newspaper for it, which is where some people theorize that he got his first taste of hero-ness.
Yeah, got a little bit of a
Hmm.
hero complex
Hero,
going.
Yeah.
yeah. Um, then after sort of those series of like odd jobs, he started working at the Glendale Fire Department. The weird thing is that he also, as a arson investigator, uh, he carried a gun.
Yeah, that's not a thing I would assume would be very necessary.
Yes.
No. Like a lot of, I don't know. It's,
Most firefighters aren't going to carry a
yeah,
weapon on them. Like it's just
exactly.
not part of like EMS and fire response. That's why they call police there. Like police are
Yeah.
trained in handling firearms.
Yeah.
Emergency
Also,
response through EMS and fire departments aren't, and they're supposed to de-escalate as much as possible. Like that's what their
If
also
job is
it's
supposed to
if
like
they're
be.
using something, it's not against somebody. They're using like an axe on a door or
Yeah,
like,
like they're
yeah,
trying to like
also
jaws
an
of life someone out of a car or something.
yeah.
an arson investigator like
It's
isn't
so
really like he
after
was
the
given like peace
fact.
officer status,
Yeah.
just very weird.
Yeah.
Um,
That it's
It's
so gosh. By the way, I was trying
but
to
he's
figure
got
out
this
or go
yeah, go
ahead, go
ahead.
ahead.
He's got this like very weird like obsession with authority and like just very like tense relationship through that. And he's also gotten like had like multiple ex-wives, and I can tell you a story about one of his ex-wives because this is fucked up too. But I'll let you go first, Brittany.
I was just gonna say I was trying to find out like what's a good example of books with over like 100,000 words. They're not super uncommon, but like they're not, I wouldn't say average.
yeah.
Just for a quick like I guess comparison. Um, some of the first ones that came up when I looked it up was stuff like The God Eaters or Lolita or a couple of Dostoevsky
Oh,
Yeah.
those are some
books.
doorstops.
So yeah,
Yeah.
thick,
Yeah.
large
I really
books.
want
Yes.
to I really want to ask my cousin what he thinks about this because he's a somewhat recently like fully fledged firefighter. Like he's been going through training for a large chunk of this year, but he's like hit full certification stuff and I want to ask him about this desperately.
Yeah. It's not like I, yeah, it's not like the, probably not the most like unheard of thing, but
Yeah.
very, it's very weird. Also, like just his insistence on it, is just also worse. There's also like stories about him trying like getting like written up throughout the Glendale department for like basically interfering with like police work on occasion
I have to
and
That
say,
doesn't
it's starting to
surprise
make a
there's
lot
me.
more sense to me why they said, "Bro, I don't care if you think it's arson. We don't believe you."
Now, yeah,
I'm
now
getting it a
that
lot more.
tracks a lot
I
more.
understand why you'd
well
be like, "This guy's a pain in my butt." No, quit
and
talking.
for so and then in the court hearing too the police actually said that he was like not very helpful at the scenes of crimes and would care more about like talking to
Reporters,
like the
probably.
press
No.
and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that and wasn't giving like super helpful
It's
information.
probably like, man, this fire starter's so smart. It's gonna be hard to find him.
Gosh. What were you saying about the ex-wife?
Oh, the ex-wife. So he, I think he had like four ex-wives or something crazy like that. One of
Also,
them,
not
though,
surprising.
yeah, one of them, though, she um didn't realize this at the time, but after they had separated, um he also just like left her. Just left.
I'm
And
sure she was
then
just so unreasonable if you were to ask him about it.
Of
she so
course,
she
of
he
course.
just he basically just left and she's like what? That's crazy. Like what do you mean? Like there wasn't like a huge fight or anything like that. But then he wanted to like get back together after he just like left her and moved out and everything. And she wasn't really interested in it, so she changed the locks to her house. And she didn't realize it at the time, but fires started happening around her house and nearby her house. And after every fire, he would come and check on her. And at the time, she didn't really mind because she actually had a stalker. And so she really didn't mind him checking on her because he made her feel safer.
Question, was
Um,
he the stalker?
he was also the stalker. Yeah. So he was like waiting in the shadows, stalking her, and she would like
And
this
she'd freak
guy's
out and probably like call for help or
insane.
something.
This guy makes the Watcher sound like your friendly neighbor coming by
Yeah,
with
like a
cookies.
whimsical, like a just a whimsical neighbor who's just into
Just
funny
an
little
odd
letters.
guy.
Yeah, just an odd
Yeah.
guy. Not this. Not
Yes.
this is I'm sorry, not to keep comparing it to like media, but like I've been watching a lot of like X-Files. This is an X-Files episode, I swear.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that there is
It is a Forensic Files
I was gonna
episode.
say I think it might be a Criminal
It's
Minds episode too.
I could
Because
see
as we
Yeah.
that.
were
Yeah.
talking about this, I was pulling a lot of stuff about like them like wanting to see their fires and stuff. Like I know that this came on some level from a show that I know was like relatively factual in how it talked about
Uh-huh.
things. Hence me
Yeah.
assuming Criminal Minds because they tended to have decent psychology in their stuff. Um, but yeah, it's so twisted.
It's
Hmm.
incredibly twisted. Also, once they had the print, initially, right, the people who called about getting the print, who called the ATF, they were like, you got to tell John Orr not to touch evidence.
Of course. Of course. Why wouldn't he tamper with evidence? How did
He's so brilliant.
ATF,
Well, no,
so
they
the
probably
ATF,
pulled his fingerprint and just assumed it wasn't him, and so they said they didn't pull it.
I
well, no, that one was actually like they didn't find any
Okay.
matches, but
Okay.
yeah,
um
that's still though like I see why he was on the list. He definitely
Yeah.
doesn't make for like a very personable, helpful investigator.
And
yeah.
like I could see where people around him in any department he worked in would dislike him. Like anyone that's going to
Yeah.
scenes and
But
like
Absolutely.
that's the
actively going out of their way to talk to press, people are not gonna like you.
but that's the other thing is like most people who did work with him like he was like esteemed amongst other investigators. He was very good. A lot of people he had taught people about
Yeah.
finding arsonists. He had like like his behavior was just absolutely insane. Um
I I hate that I
yeah.
compared him to a beloved detective of fiction. You
Yes.
didn't deserve that, Hercule. Agatha
Um
Christie had some stuff going on, but like that
Yeah.
he
She
was
did have some
decent.
good stories despite being a very questionable person morally looking back at it from our current history standpoint.
Yeah.
um Death of the author, but not in the case of John Orr, who's the author but also the subject.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't get past that. Like it's all
so
bad. Honestly, no, the stalker
yeah,
thing's definitely the worst part of it. Like that level of manipulation
yes,
is
yeah, no, the
frightening.
manipulation is insane. Also, the ATF, once they got the fingerprint back, they basically needed to catch him. So they might have gotten him for that one fire, but they couldn't link him to like more. Um, and they basically tracked him and followed him around, waiting for him to set another fire so they could basically catch him red-handed. They put like a tracking device on his car and everything. And he eventually they did catch him because I think what happened was he set a fire at Warner Bros. Studio
Bold
where his
That is a
move.
very bold move.
ex-wife was working. Whoa. He actually used her key card to like get in there.
That's so messed up. So I I do have to wonder if his reaction to getting caught was like, you finally put it together, or if he was like, you really think it was me, the investigator starting fires? Like, I just want to know what route he
You
took.
wouldn't
Yeah.
hit a guy with glasses. You wouldn't hit a little birthday boy.
So he, yeah, so initially he pled completely innocent, tried to gaslight investigators completely, being like, that's crazy. They found his manuscript. He was like, this is all fiction. It's not real. It's just a story.
Boo. Get off the
Um,
stage.
they weren't believing any of it. So initially he was charged with um arson for like a bunch of different cases. And he got 30 years in prison for it. He took a plea deal, I think. So technically he pled guilty to that, but he never like, I don't know, didn't
He didn't
confess.
he didn't feel
Real
like he truly took
quiet.
accountability.
Yeah,
Real quiet once he got caught.
he maintains that he is innocent.
He just pled for
Yeah. Well,
not
okay, so
wanting courtroom issues or something.
basically his story is that he like the evidence that they had was all circumstantial, but it was convincing enough that the jury would be convinced by it. Um
Sure,
then
Jan.
yeah, yeah. But the manuscript was a huge part of it. And the
Oh,
fingerprint, right? Like those were the two
Hmm.
huge pieces of evidence. Um but then after they got him on the arson charges, and he was in prison, they brought murder charges for the four people who lost their lives in the hardware store, who were the only person who died, people who died um, throughout this whole thing that they're aware of. So I think it's
yeah,
honestly kind of crazy that there weren't more people who died because,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fires.
yeah. Oh my God. Also, I'm so sorry, I forgot to say this. He also, at one of these places where he set a fire, was dressed up like a sheriff, and a woman saw him dressed up as a sheriff and was like, "Oh, I'm worried about my elderly neighbor in that store." And he was like, "Oh, I'll go help," and helped this old man, which
And
is
then
good
went
that
to
he
that
did
store
that.
to start it on fire?
No, this was after the store had
Oh,
started on fire.
okay.
Um,
Oh my gosh.
she, the worker, she couldn't get a hold of like emergency services, and she was like, "Oh, I'm worried about my like neighbor. He's older." And so
And he, with his
John
hero complex, of course, could not let
went to,
that
Of
go.
to
course.
save went to save this older man. But then when the
Brother.
actual firefighters and police got there, he was Sheriff John Orr was nowhere to be found. Um, when they arrested him, he had matches, cigarettes, despite being an avid non-smoker. Um, yellow notebook paper, rubber bands, cassettes, video footage, pictures, and there was something else that was really weird that he had, and I'm losing it. But
He
he
had a bunch of
had,
sketchy stuff on his person.
yeah, well, it was like ordinarily it wouldn't be sketchy, but like,
Considering all of the circumstances, it is very sketchy.
yes, yeah. Um, and yeah, so they ended up taking him to court for the four murder cases after the initial trial. Um, he was found guilty of uh, the murders, but not. Oh, but he wasn't given the death penalty, which he could have. It was a 4-8 hung jury decision, and they didn't give him ended up not giving him um, the death penalty. So he sits in prison.
That's like the only good thing.
Well,
Yeah. But part of the like biggest pieces of evidence um was the manuscript in the murder trial actually because there was, sorry if you can hear that, my cat's being fed right now. Um so was that he so the little boy, the 2-year-old boy who died, they had been going to Baskin Robbins, like in the actual story. So it was the two grandparents, the grandma and grandpa, and the boy who went. The grandpa escaped, and the grandma and the boy died. Um, but the boy had wanted like Baskin Robbins, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll get you mint chocolate chip ice cream when we're done at the store." And that specific detail was in his book of the little boy wanting mint chocolate chip ice cream. And that was like another like convincing piece
Yeah,
of evidence
it's like
in the
you would
story.
have to be at the scene of it if you overheard such a specific conversation.
Yeah. Well,
and
and
my
like so much of this was so like specific and was
yeah,
just the same thing that actually happened. The same characterizations in which he is both Aaron and Phil.
I
He's both
also
the hero and villain.
And the
I
villain, yeah.
I feel like even if you were investigating, even if you were on scene, we knew you were on scene, we knew you saw some of these details. I would struggle with any person in this sort of position taking that sort of suffering and then turning it into content to sell in a book.
Oh yeah,
Like to
Yeah,
totally.
work this kind
And
of
novelizing
job
also
and then turn
anything
it,
like that.
yeah,
he
like,
yeah, but
yeah,
like I mean as the investigator, he wasn't there before the
yeah,
fire. He wouldn't have been
yeah,
there before the fire
Yeah.
started, but
yeah,
since
yeah.
he was. Um so that's where he is. He's like 75 now or something like that. His daughter was actually took like went to the stand during the penalty decision and like asked for mercy with the death penalty. She didn't believe he was guilty at the time, but now does and has cut ties with him. Um,
That would be so hard as a kid to like have that faith in your parent and then like slowly be like, you are a horrible person.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Um, but there were, I think, with everything said and done, 4 counts of first degree murder with special circumstances and 21 counts of arson from 1984 to 1990. Um, Oh, he also is life without parole is his final prison sentence.
Oh,
So,
Take it.
yeah.
um, this is the crazy part. So, arson investigators estimate that after Orr was arrested, the number of brush fires in the foothills around Glendale decreased by more than 90%. Before Orr was arrested, there was something like 67 on average per year. After he was arrested, it went down to one.
That is an outrageous amount of destruction. Like the costs there and putting all of those out and the man hours and the like that
Yeah.
doesn't
And
even take
also,
into account any potential loss of life of people fighting like brush fires or like
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
and like
that.
the environmental factors
Yeah.
too. Like
yeah,
obviously the human lives is the focus because that is,
Yeah. But like
yeah.
but there's just a wide web of like
you're messing up
terrible
that
things.
ecosystem really badly too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
In a place that again is so prone to wildfires, it could totally go get out of control and decimate like
Hmm.
Yeah.
an area completely. We've seen footage of what happens when fires get really, really bad in that area.
Yeah.
Like when the wildfire was right on the edge of
There's,
the
oh
interstate.
yeah. And they have those like all the time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why would you ever like tempt the fates on
I
something like
mean,
that? Just on purpose
yeah.
for,
And like with that position, you would have to understand the risks. Like you didn't
yeah.
unknowingly go into this. You chose intentionally knowing exactly the risk of what could happen.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I think that was the another aspect of it too was like they didn't yeah, they so he so during the like process the court they explicitly like separated the terms of like arsonist and like pyromaniac because like pyromaniac like what is like somehow is like driven more by
Im
like
impulse.
an impulse, right? Like more of a
Yeah.
mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
Versus this
whereas
is more of a planned,
arson, this is
thought out,
planned,
schemed thing.
manipulative,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
intentional,
it's
motivated by revenge, which is also part of the reason why ATF took it because that I
mhm.
probably didn't make very clear. Because ATF is like alcohol, tobacco, firearms,
Yeah.
um, typically, but apparently when arson is suspected to be like
Retribution or something.
revenge or
Yeah.
like money
Yeah.
motivated, then the ATF get it, which I find interesting.
Hmm.
Um, but the supervisor for the ATF task force believes that Orr set nearly 2,000 fires between 1984 and 1991, making him the most prolific arson of the 20th century that is
Yeah.
recorded anyways.
That is bonkers.
Because when there's like spree or sort of like manic crime, it's
Hmm.
way less calculated than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, and this was very
requires a
calculated.
level
Like
of
backing off so that the intensity of search wears down
Oh,
before you do more definitely is way more thought
also,
out.
I remembered that other weird thing he had in his car. He had a fake police badge.
ah,
That was the other
you're
thing.
literally an official. Why would
Like,
you be impersonating an officer when you already are one? This
because
like it's
going around and being like, I'm the fire investigator didn't feel as cool to him as being like, I'm the cops.
Which
imagine
is
being
crazy because it's like
so
No.
arguably like arson investigator is like kind of cooler, I would say,
Yeah,
I
I
would think
than
also
a
so
norm
too.
plain
like
old investigator.
I've seen cops. Like I have met a number of cops. I do not personally know an arson investigator. I'd be way more likely to be like, "Whoa, tell
I
me
feel
about
like I
that."
would be more interested in a conversation with an arson investigator than a police officer.
Yeah.
Like,
Imagine
I think they'd have
being
more interesting stories.
imagine being so milk toast that nobody ever recognizes you and
No.
yet so unhinged that the notably has had very questionable things happen. LAPD is like, nah,
See,
no.
I think one of the
LAPD
things,
in the 80s
In
or
the
like
80s!
70s. Oh my
yeah.
God.
And like
Ugh.
I think part of the issue though is that like a lot of times when you see violent crime, like statistically speaking, it's much more often male. And in a lot of cases, it's just the most unassuming person you've ever seen in your whole
Yeah.
life. And so,
But
Hmm.
like, that's where it gets hard when they're like, well,
yeah.
not all people are bad. Like, it's just some of them. And it's like, how on earth am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to know from a brief conversation who's the bad one and who's the good one when
Yeah.
there clearly is a subset of people that will stalk you and then use it as a way to manipulate themselves into your good graces? Like,
Yeah. Well, and that's the
It's
other thing too, right?
terrifying.
Like his family didn't like that was another claim he made about why he like he took like the plea deal was because his like now ex-wife, but his current wife at that time, he like didn't want to bankrupt her or something like that, or bankrupt them, and then she would be affected by that. So that was another excuse for why he said he took the plea deal. But I think what it really was is that he was like 30 years for arson for the number of fires that I set, the
It's like,
number of fires, like, and that's
If we
the
take
ones
the
that
time to go through
they know
trial, it's
about.
gonna look a lot worse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I don't think he realized he was going to be charged for the murders,
yeah,
which is why
hmm
they charged him separately, why they
yeah,
did two separate trials.
yeah,
Um, like the
smart.
first one was really just to get him off the street. And he was probably thinking like, oh, 30 years, but like good behavior,
yeah,
parole maybe,
yeah.
like
And
might be
like
able
Especially,
to
clearly
yeah,
he's
get
a
with,
that verdict.
manipulative person, so I'm sure he figured he could get in the good graces of whoever
Yeah.
yeah,
could recommend him to a parole board.
it's worked for other horrible people.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
has.
He is still writing. He wrote another book called Points of Truth,
Kick
which is all about
rocks. Oh my gosh.
how, which is all about how he's innocent and how all of the information is wrong and how it was all a conspiracy against him. And then he's also published a little bit in like the prison journal that he's in, which like honestly, I'm think that's cool that they got that, but also I hate him so much. So,
Like,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
get I get that people get wrongfully convicted for things. I do not believe that this man was
no,
wrongfully convicted.
no,
No, oh no, absolutely
no,
not.
not
I
at
think,
all.
yeah, no,
We've talked
I,
about wrongful like practices on
Yeah.
this
Oh,
show.
we
yeah.
have repeatedly of like criminal investigations that were done poorly and things that were badly
And there's
researched
so
and
many
yeah.
good example of that.
Oh
This
yeah.
one, I
This
mean,
is
oh,
not
the
in that
other thing,
category
the other
at
thing
all.
during the trial was like so the prosecution had to get around the fact that, sorry, I know this is like not good for like podcast format of me being like, oh, the other
No,
thing.
it's okay. It's okay.
If you're here for a straightforward storytelling, you've come to the wrong place.
This is not the
This
show
is
for that.
correct.
Um, but the prosecution needed to find a way to get around the like fact that the police had officially ruled that the fire at Oli's hardware store was an accident caused by wiring, and so they found an electrician who wired the building. It was like there wasn't even a wiring in the attic. It was all going in through the like the floor underground. There was no
Okay.
wiring in the attic.
So they were basically able to recant by like further evidence so they
They were
Yeah.
able
could
to go
pin it
look
on
at how
him.
dumb we used to be. Please,
No,
for
I
reals,
mean,
this was his fault.
low-key,
That
I do think that the police were just like not very good at their job, but
Yeah.
also
yeah.
it
There's
probably didn't
also
help having somebody around who was like,
But you know, when the guy you've accused of
"Mhm,
setting fire says, this kind of seems like arson to me, one does start to suspect.
uh-huh.
mhm,
I can't get over how just like it's like the self-righteous ness of it all is so annoying. He's so awful and annoying about it. Pick a struggle, please.
Yeah. Like
yeah,
hypocrisy will never not be irritating. This feels like worse than hypocrisy has ever been.
yeah. I mean, this is somebody who's
Gotta be
just
one of the worst examples I've seen.
so messed up in so many ways. I like can't even fathom. I feel so bad for those poor investigators who had to read his book
Yeah.
to gather evidence for like the prosecution.
I
Like
can't even imagine.
I feel like
Yeah.
if I was in that position, I would literally want to burn my eyes out.
Like it's so twisted that it feels like one of those like trashy, badly done kind of scammy book things you see on
Yeah.
like social media where they're like, pay us $1 gajillion to read this poorly written book that's worse than anything you've ever read on AO3.
Yeah.
Um,
I
Uh-huh.
mean,
like it feels like a plot of one of those.
but also that's like a good point because there are a lot of parts of his book that are very, very sexually explicit
Yeah.
too. Like Like he describes sexual gratification from committing arson. And it's just like
That should be worth overtime pay. I
it
To
don't
goes
care
make
what
sure you
time.
on
read that.
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Like it just gets so much worse for this most seemingly average looking guy. And he's just like
Like as a
truly
person,
one of the worst
yeah.
people that we've probably talked about on the show.
Yeah. As a
Definitely.
person who reads enough that like I've read some pretty bad things just for the sake of like curiosity and hearing people talk about it and just like wanting to know, I cannot imagine needing to read that.
Hmm.
No, I can't either. Like
Nope.
it's like it's like if Twilight was written by evil arsonist loser.
I'm pretty sure it's worse than Twilight too.
No,
And it's
it is.
definitely
It
less
is.
Mormon.
Yeah.
Definitely less Mormon. But
Little
it's
more incel.
like this size of a book
Yeah.
is like it's just yeah, it really makes me think of obviously he's a bad person. He's not this bad, but it really just reminds me of like an Onision type of
Hmm.
like in his books, which are atrocious. Please don't look into them ever for your own well-being. Um, but yeah, like that it takes a special kind of like twisted to be that way and also be
Yeah.
so I don't even know how to put it. Just the way he's being about it.
It's every time I'm like, man, that guy really sucks. He just wants to ratchet it up a little extra.
Yeah, it keeps
Yeah.
going. Like it
Yeah.
keeps escalating.
You're like, man, he sucked. And then you're like, oh, wow, that is a new level.
All
And then
gas,
it
no
just
brakes.
keeps getting worse and worse.
Hmm.
And I also just I feel so bad for like um I just feel so bad for like the people who also like cared about him too and
Yeah.
who like
Yeah.
that's the other thing too is
Yeah.
he's got this like horrible like double self-image of himself too. Like I mean this is assuming like
And I
really basing this
pers
assumption off the
yeah.
book, but like this horrible self-image of being hated and
Yeah.
like thought
Yeah.
of as just like hating himself but also like believing himself to be the hero.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
But also
so
like
such low esteem, but also very like self-aggrandizing almost.
yeah, yeah, like
It's an odd combo.
and so
Yeah.
I feel like his family is probably like I mean even his ex-wife was like liked him
Yeah, clearly
and
cared
like
about
At the
him
she
time.
still
at the
cared
time.
about him. She don't want to be
Yeah.
get back together with him because did a whack job thing, but like
Yeah.
um obviously like trusted him a lot and like believed him to be like a good guy and
Yeah.
even his like even the other people who he worked with were like, "Oh, he's a little funny sometimes, but like
Everyone
generally
can be a
like
little
him."
weird
Like,
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like not
yeah.
anything
It
He
would be
was
so,
too
braggadocious
harmful.
yeah.
probably,
Yeah,
but
It would be really hard not to like struggle to trust yourself and your like instincts about other people after that for like anyone that was
yeah.
particularly close to him.
Yeah.
definitely.
But that's also how manipulative, abusive people tend to be is they make you kind of second guess everything about how you interact with the world. So,
Yeah, your sense of judgment for
yeah.
sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, final
Final.
thoughts. I I hate him. I wish continued what he's doing right now. and nothing else because he deserves no more of my mental energy.
Yeah. I think for me, it's just like I kind of think he's like a very pathetic person and um can't like refuses to admit the truth that he killed four people. Which I mean, to be honest, right, like the rest of the fires, they didn't hurt people even though they had the potential to, and they did cause millions and millions of dollars in damages, but like that's not very important to me. But like refusing to admit that he killed four people when he's written what he's written in the book
Yep.
feels like particularly heinous. Um, and uh, he will still do press interviews where he claims that he's innocent. And I think at this point, we actually know enough and so respectfully to people who are writing for newspapers, but you don't need to reach out to him anymore because he's terrible and he's probably just enjoying the attention.
Oh yeah, just feeding off
Oh,
of
for
that.
sure.
Mhm.
I find it improbable based on the psychiatric evaluations and just in general what he's doing that he is not on some level in some form at least a little bit mentally ill. But that's not an excuse for being a horrible person and not getting help. So,
Yep.
uh, disrespectfully kick rocks.
Very disrespectfully.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that about does it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, silly name, terrible, horrible person
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Silly names.
silly names. Yes.
Because
Terrible,
to be
horrible
honest, I was
person.
like, naming somebody the Frito Bandito is far too whimsical for what this person
For
has
this
done.
guy. Yeah.
Like,
I expected like the guys who did like the whole egg heist thing.
Yeah.
Like that's what gives
true.
me Frito Bandito
It feels like
energy.
they stole like every Frito from every store in like a
Yeah.
40-mile radius.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And that is not at
And then
all
it was
what
just
this is.
so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it feels like that stupid brain rot meme where it's like, I am having such a good time, I says with joy. I was then shot 47 times. Like, that's the kind of
It it is the
highs to
vibe.
lows of
It
this
Yeah.
is.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just generally like what a effed up person.
Yeah.
I I I've never like heard of a living person who I want to meet less
Yep.
than this man. Like I would run 40 marathons before
Uh-huh.
Like at least
meeting
some
him.
other
Like
messed up people would maybe be interesting. I feel like I would just be pissed off to no end with this person.
this
Mm.
guy, I feel like he would be not only an absolutely horrible person, but also the most obnoxious person you have ever met too.
Yeah.
Like you can't be both.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be
Pick a
both.
lane of awfulness. You can't be all of
True.
them at the same time.
And
Get
like
bent, John Orr, is what I
yeah,
leave with.
Yeah.
like like yeah, you probably are like a terribly uncharismatic person. Even though people did seem to like you, they probably just didn't like you that much.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. Well, thanks for listening to us on this whatever day you're listening, but we are recording on a spooky Friday the 13th.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was uh, enraging but good. Like
Hmm.
good interesting topic. I enjoyed learning about this even though
Yeah.
it gives me
Even though it was
the
a hate
rage.
learn.
It was a hate learn, but I did enjoy you bringing us the topic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um with that, we're gonna end off here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Um, I don't know any good funds to really shout out. I guess like we could maybe put some animal welfare and like maybe something to do with like
True.
I don't know like or like fire rescue or something. We'll figure something good
Yeah.
out for
Your
this.
local fire department probably does some form of fundraiser. Try to support that, maybe.
Yes.
There's my cat, who I believe would be a pyromaniac if she had opposable thumbs. She
That
sits in the corner because it is toasty.
mhm.
So,
I think Benny would be the one out of my three,
I
Fluffy
unsurprisingly.
think
is too dumb and Tequila likes to not be involved. That makes a lot of sense.
I actually
Yeah.
think that most cats would be pyros if
That's
they
true.
had opposable
They
thumbs.
do have kind of a fascination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back another time with another topic. This has been Hypothetically Speaking, the show where we talk about anything unexplained, unsolved, and unnatural. Thanks for joining us for the Frito Bandito episode on this fine Friday the 13th. Have a great night, and we'll catch you next time.